So welcome to, oops, yeah, we're live. Okay, so welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for December 16th, 2021. We'll follow the agenda that was tagged in the issue, which was issue 1138. And before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share?
Yeah, should probably mention we are currently having some issues with some of the Macs in the CI. So there was a scheduled maintenance window, but that's currently been extended. So at the moment, we are just waiting to hear back from our provider as to when those will be back up. So at the moment, we are down a few Macs in the CI. So you may have to wait for any CIs if you're running things with PRs and things.
Yeah, and it might be worth mentioning that might persist till tomorrow.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
Okay. Maybe. If you want an update, you can always go take a look. There is an issue in the build repo. Maybe I'll just paste that in the minutes here. If people want to take a look. So that's where we should probably update once we get things going again or know when things will be, that kind of thing. Any other announcements? Okay, I don't have any updates from the board or the CPC this week. As things, over the next couple of weeks, a number of the CPC meetings have been canceled, and there's no board meetings or anything planned, so pretty quiet on that front. Okay, so the next things, we might as well move on to the issues tagged for the agenda. The first one is the meta move emeritus to emeritus automatically after 18 months. And actually, I see that's already been closed, so I don't think that there's any discussion that we actually need on that. Okay, the next one is managing feature requests. This is number 41113. And actually, I added this to the agenda. I think it was maybe about a month ago. Maybe not. Maybe just well, actually, I think it was about a month ago. Anyway. We were looking at all the issues across in the Node core repo, just to seeing what we could triage to bring down numbers. Something. One of the things I noticed is that like 20% of our issues are feature requests, and 153 are more than a year old, 96 more than 2 years old. So it seems like we've got a lot of feature requests, which I kind of doubt anybody is looking at. And I'm wondering if we should do something in terms of like making sure we just don't let those hang around open forever. One of the interesting things I saw was that I think which project was it? It is, I think it was an Angular blog where they brought in some voting on issues. So basically, if somebody opens a feature request, you can like thumbs up the issue. And issues get closed if they don't reach a certain threshold after some amount of time. And that actually sounded reasonable to me. Like if you can get 1,000 people to thumbs up your feature request, maybe that's something we should, prioritize to look at. If it's one, well, unfortunately, we don't have a group of people we tell what to do. It's like whoever is interested. So if nobody has actually picked it up, maybe it's better to close it than to keep it around forever. There was a bit of discussion in the issue, but not too much. So I wanted to put it on the agenda to try and get some discussion. See if if I could get some feeling from the TSC members as to like what might be a direction that people would find acceptable. I think Rich had made some suggestions. One of them was like to say, let's close them after, some period of time, whether it's 60 days, 90 days, whatever, with a reference to the RFC process, basically saying, sorry, we've closed this because nobody's gotten involved, there hasn't been any discussion in quite a long time. If you think if you think this is really important, you could open up the discussion through the RFC process.
Do we have an RFC process? I thought we didn't.
I believe that's, well, maybe the proposed RFC process.
Okay.
So yes, I didn't think about that when I was reading the comment about, yeah, maybe we would have to actually put them in. I guess I'm coming from, like, we have a huge number of these and I don't know that it makes sense to have them open, but it'd be interesting to hear what other TSC members think in terms of, like, that's fine and better to just leave them there, or whether we should try and prune down that list. Anybody have any thoughts they'd like to share or bring up on that?
I agree that we don't serve those people by leaving the feature request open, because no one is going to look at it, I think. But also, I don't know what kind of threshold we can agree on what's a feature request that's not worth keeping open.
Yeah, that's probably the tricky question. I mean, I'd pick something off the top of my head, like if there's been no more discussion in 6 months, then the likelihood of somebody picking it up and doing it is probably pretty low.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me.
Would anybody have any objections to us just closing them after 6 months?
I mean, if somebody still cares about it, I guess they get a notification that it closed and then, ask for a reopen.
Right, and that's in fact, like, we started auto closing, or we're using Stalebot in the Node API repos. And it's actually been a pretty decent reminder, like, oh, we forgot to actually do, we haven't actually looked at this for a certain amount of time. And it does actually sometimes make even like the maintainers say, wait a sec, this is important, we better do something.
Well, what I do is, like, could we close it with a comment, like, please comment or reopen if this is still an active issue for you or something, just so that people, are not afraid to comment or reopen something that's been closed by the Stalebot.
I think
when someone comments.
Exactly, yeah. When you add a stored label on a pure an issue, the Stalebot adds a comment saying it's going to be closed in 30 days unless someone comment.
Yep. That's also good.
Okay, so yeah, I think I looked at it. I think we can even have the Stalebot only apply to certain tags. So I think we could set it up so that it basically just for feature things tag feature request would say, after this amount of inactivity, yes, we're going to put a comment, and then after 30 more days it gets closed or something. So okay, so it sounds like if nobody is like violently, thinks it's a bad idea, I can put together some sort of proposal and document that says, like, here's how we'll manage our feature requests and what it would, after what time we would close them, and we can sort of close on the details as part of landing that. The other question I'd have is, in terms of voting, do people think there's any value in saying, like, have people thumbs up feature requests and then us try and look at that number somehow?
I don't know, because I think there is a couple of feature requests that have been open for ages that have a lot of thumbs up. And, unless we can get volunteers to do work, they're still not being done. So,
is that interesting?
I think we could discuss thresholds, but sorry?
I'm just wondering, like, I'd still be interested to know which ones are thumbed up a lot.
Fetch, off the top of my head.
Right.
WebSockets.
Okay.
Those kind of things. So they've been open for who knows, years.
Right.
But we probably don't want to close those. Exactly.
Yes, probably not. But I mean, that's so. Yes, in theory, we could have thresholds for voting, but we are probably going to end up with things that it might help close things down, but for things that remain open, all it's going to do is we're just going to have things that are voted as desired, I guess, but without without the sort of volunteers to do the work, they will still be unimplemented.
True, but it might still be like some feedback to volunteers. Like, I don't know, 200 open ones. Like if we were down to like 5 or 6 highly voted ones, I wouldn't be nearly as concerned. And maybe those might have a better chance. I don't know.
The problem with auto-closing issues is that it demotivates people opening both issues and pull requests, and sometimes it causes some backslash. So it is something that is quite probable to cause issues, but at the same time, if implemented correctly, it would likely be okay. But perhaps we will need some more discussion about how exactly to implement that in a way that wouldn't demotivate people a lot. Perhaps we could label some issues at the start, like labeling them something that with a label that will tell the bot that how to close these issues to ignore that issue from the start of this.
Yeah, there is a never stale.
Like not waiting until it becomes stale and the bot auto closes it and then reopen it, because it could get missed at that point. But you could do that proactively, perhaps, when the issue gets opened, if we see that it's something with a good enough quality to be kept, then it can get ignored.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like our process could be that like collaborators can mark it as never stale if they think, like if there's collaborators are saying, yes, we think this is important, and yes, we think we'll do this.
Yes, and
that would make
that's
sense.
Just one of the ideas, and another one would be that an issue that was close to stale should be reopened on any comment, I think, automatically. Because if you just say that this issue will have to close in 30 days unless someone comments, someone might miss that. They might be on vacation, or they might just be busy with other things, and then they will come back after 30 days and we'll see that their issue was closed. And if it won't get reopened when they comment, no one will notice it. It will also be not a very great experience for them.
I don't think there's any tooling that will do that, though.
Why not? I think it should be doable. We have our own bot for it, I think.
I mean, there's like what I'm aware of is the stale bot, which we could use, but I don't think it has a feature to say automatically reopen if somebody comments. I could be wrong, but
I don't think that would be something too hard to implement if we decided it is necessary. Also, this is a kind of the discussion that I would prefer to see on GitHub instead, with more people than I just.
Sure.
Than
yeah, I want to get feedback in terms of like, is it a no-go or not? It sounds like people are not completely opposed to it.
I don't think that it's a no-go, but it's something that is very likely, like if you just do it without discussing and planning how to avoid the potential issues with that, it is something that likely code disruption, and you will have net negative effect. So you need to be very careful with that.
Okay. So yeah, and probably best to discuss the issues in GitHub so we can take it back there. I'll open an issue that I think I'll open like a PR that proposes something in the guides of like how we manage feature requests, and probably a good place to discuss that. Anything else we want to talk about on that one before we move to the next issue? Okay, the next one is docs, clarification around real world risks and use cases of VM module. This is 40718. I'm not sure who opened this one or who added it to the agenda. I guess it was Mateo who added it to the agenda. And here's the question. The fundamental question is, do we want to mark the VM module, do not use it to run untrusted code for building services that run untrusted code statement? Do we want to mark the VM module with a do not use it to run untrusted code or for building systems that run untrusted code statement? There are plenty of modules in the ecosystem that claims this. Should we work to embed isolated VM? Is that the solution we want? Note this discusses with some, this ties with some discussion about primordials.
We already marked VM module as do not run untrusted code in each several years ago, I think.
I wonder if we can find the link to the.
And yes, it's an ongoing problem. There are modules in the ecosystem that claim that they can run untrusted code using just VM, and they actually can't run untrusted code and are very easy to escape. And the issues get reported. They kind of fix it, also breaking another thing, something else in the process, and they never get it right. Except for cases when the whole JavaScript interface is emulated. But that's not running untrusted code anywhere.
I'm just taking some notes here.
I pasted the link to the docs in the meeting minutes where we do state that it's not to be used as a security.
Okay, that's good. Thanks. I'm just trying to get back to the. Right, this is the one. Okay. There was a comment from the isolated VM maintainer, I think, who basically said you don't want to do that.
Could you share the link in the chat, please?
To.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we've answered one of the questions, and The other one, I don't know, is there anybody here who's got any comments or thoughts in terms of isolated VM? I wouldn't be really going that way if the person who's writing it says you shouldn't.
Let me take a look. Give me a second, please. Oh, isolate VM actually, as remember that looks better than most of those, but most of the modules that I mentioned are just wrappers on top of the VM module. They don't have any native code at all. They're just using the JavaScript interface that we provide in the VM module, and they never get things right. And isolate VM, it actually looks interesting, and I don't actually have a solid opinion about it yet.
Okay, so I think without more context, that's maybe the discussion that's the useful discussion that we can have. I'll paste into the issue the link answering that first question that's saying, we already did that. And then Chalker, if you have more thoughts, you can always jump into the issue itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, sorry, I was absent for a while, but I'll take a close look at the isolate VM thing and that issue.
Sounds good. The next issue is renamed default branch from master domain. I don't have any updates on that. I haven't had any time to sort of look at whether some of the last remaining ones have had any progress. I don't know if anybody else has had a chance to look recently. If not, I'd say let's move on to the next issue. The next one is migration of core modules to Primordials. And I think, as discussed, the real issue we should talk about is 1104, which is related to the vote. And next time, that's the one that will show on the agenda now. I don't know if there's somebody with context that wants to lead the discussion on that.
Let me find the issue. Looking for the issue.
Here, I'll paste it in the chat. If that helps.
So last time we quickly went through during the meeting what the elements would be, right?
Yeah, and so I mean, I think the one you want to look at this point is, I mean, I'm gonna paste this comment into the chat, which is where we've got, I think we have an agreement that we're down to these 5 options at the most. And I've been suggesting we remove C. And I think there seems to be some.
I mean, yeah, I guess there is some overlap there with the technical priorities thing.
Oh, am I looking at the wrong issue? Oh,
no,
no,
I think that was the right one.
C is overlap with the technical priorities issue. Yeah, and also just, I mean, I just don't think that we've as a governing body, as a decision-making body, we have been very slow to deal with this issue, and a lot of work has gone into it by a small portion of the TSC. Girish, you, and Antoine, and a few others. Yeah, and I think that just like asking for more feedback from the community is really just a way to like defer the need to make a decision. At some point we need to make a decision. I think we're past that point. I think we need to just do it.
I also agree with removing it, just because in the previous case, we had like a very specific, well-defined thing that some feedback would help us with. In this case, I don't think it's nearly as clear. So I think we might get useful info, but it wouldn't help us make the decision in the end.
Let's flip the question. Does anybody think we should definitely keep it? Does anybody think that that is absolutely the way to go? I think we should get rid of it. All right.
Let's just get rid of it then.
Okay. All right. And then I was also arguing for the removal of D, which is do not. So actually, for the interest of and I see Colin dropping B and C. Okay, so we'll go back to B, but for the interest of people who are streaming or people watching the recording, C was ask the community for more feedback. I've been advocating for dropping D as well, which is do not port any further code to Primordials, but do not remove existing. In other words, just leave it exactly where it is now, and don't increase use of Primordials, but also don't remove it. And I kind of think that that's like the worst of all. That's just like, oh well, wherever it ended up is where we're going to leave it. It hopefully, is in a good place right now. And I think that I don't know. I get. I don't know. Maybe we can leave that one.
I mean, in practically, that's like saying, okay, let's not do more Primordials and remove the Primordials that we have today, but it's not that important to remove them. So they go down on the priority list and nobody ever does it.
Right.
So it's kind of the same as removing Primordials.
Okay. So I see Colin in the chat is advocating for removing B, which is fully migrate module loaders and policy code to C++ and undo all Primordials. The advantage is no ambiguity about what code has to be migrated and what code does not. And I think that there are people who might advocate for that, but I don't know if they're here today.
I would love that option, but I just don't see who would do it. They work to do it to C++.
Bradley.
Yeah, if we implement this and if we move all this code to C++, there are exactly like 3 or 4 people who will ever touch the code again.
That's the downside. Is that it becomes incredibly less accessible.
Also, it's likely to introduce issues in that code change. It has huge potential of breaking something and not just breaking, but introducing some subtle issues that.
But I think we're now starting to get into like how we're going to vote on these.
Yeah.
I think if we remove C, there's nothing which delays the vote. And like, while I agree with you on D and I wouldn't vote for it, I don't think it's important to remove it from the vote. Like we're down to a small enough number. Let's just schedule the vote and go, right?
So the only remaining issue then I think is to make sure everybody has enough information to understand E, which is Antoine's suggestion about the bind this proposal. Which, let's see, Antoine followed up with a question that I asked about whether it would mean waiting or not. And he said, no, altering the code using a syntax not yet supported by V8. I mean, that's yeah, okay, that's clear enough. I think we can vote on things at this point.
And the question I would have on that one is like, is the benefit, I took a quick look at it, is the benefit is that that's ergonomic enough that it now makes it easy to have Primordials without, we get the goods without the bad.
But that's getting into the details, and that's getting into stuff that should probably be in the issue tracker so that everybody can read it and everybody's on the same page, I think. But I think that like in terms of like, do we have a small enough number of items that we can call for a vote and continue to have these conversations, clarifying questions, and so on and so forth. And I think the answer is yes. I think those 4 items is enough that we can do ranked choice. Like, people who know what they want can say, this is my first choice, this is my second, this is my third. And Antoine wants to say something. So go ahead, Antoine.
So I don't know if folks have seen, I've suggested maybe we should do 2 votes because clearly Primordials are big, has a big impact on code readability. And I think Ruben has, for example, Ruben has would like to see that go away. but maybe tamper-proofness is not something like if we could have both tamper-proofness without primordials, it would like that. So maybe if we do the 2 votes, one on what do we want to make tamper-proof, and another one on how to make that tamper-proof. So using primordial the way we do today, using a build step with a proposal bind this, or something else, so migrate to C++.
Well, I wonder
would that work?
I wonder if if whether or not we should make something tamper-proof. I wonder if the answer to that is dependent upon the implementation. Like some people will say no if it means moving everything to C++, or I imagine. Yeah, I don't know, but maybe it'll work. I don't know. What do other people think?
But looking at the current options, I mean, we kind of have an implicit agreement that it's the module loaders and the policy code that we want to make tamper-proof. Given the current state of readability, maintainability of achieving tamper-proofness, right?
Yeah, and like I said, maybe we also would like to have a repo tamper-proof because it's not a performance-sensitive part of node at all, and it gains of being tamper-proof. But maybe it's something we don't want to include in the vote.
I think like option E is when that exists, we can discuss this again. But it doesn't exist yet. So given the current way of implementing primordials, I think that's the context we have to keep in mind here. Like if there comes a way to do primordials that is both performance-wise and maintainability-wise good, then I mean, there's not much to discuss. Let's just do it. But we're not there right now, are we?
I'm not sure. I think there's a Babel plugin with the proposal. Which I guess
are we ready to put in Babel in our code base as a build step?
Is that that's exactly what the vote would be about. I wouldn't, but
I think there are pretty strong pushback against that.
Colin came in with a quick all caps no in the chat, just for the benefit of people streaming.
I'm practically, I don't think that's an option. There are going to be a lot of people against that.
I mean, maybe what you're saying is like E is the viable option is like wait until the TC39 proposal bind this progresses and revisit then, right?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, that's what I asked, and I mean, here I'm going to post another one. So that's what I asked there, and the answer from Antoine was no. We could author it now. So treating it as an author it now proposal, and like we're making a decision now, we can always make another decision a year from now when new things are available to us. But what are we doing? Sure. I think the vote is on what are we doing right now, and yeah. And I would be surprised if we chose to do that, but I'm not. If that's what everybody else wants to do, I'm okay. But I think it's fine to include it. I think it's a viable option, and I might be surprised. I just wanted to make sure we ripped out C, because C was the one that was like was basically voting to not actually make a decision, and I think that yeah. Now I guess but the thing that Antoine originally brought up that started this conversation was, do we want to have 2 votes, one on whether we want to make things tamper-proof or not? I'm inclined to say no, but
so
go ahead.
What's bugging me about this is okay, if we decide that module and policy will be tamper-proof, will we undo what has been done in HTTP or not? Or will we keep making primordials in repo? It gives a lot of gray area. So maybe we need to decide also, say, okay, now HTTP is no longer somewhere we put primordials because we as TSC decided it's not worth it.
I think A implicitly was only module loading and policy would be tamper-proof.
Yeah, but that doesn't say that the
yeah.
we have to undo what has been done.
And we could add undo primordials everywhere else.
So we could also just make a decision about module loaders and policy, and then make a second decision about everything else.
But maybe we don't want to put everything else in the same basket. Like I said, REPL
and HTTP might be their own things. Yeah. Maybe we need to make decisions about multiple sections of the code. But I do think that making a decision about module loading and policy first makes a lot of sense, because those are obvious. If you want something to be tamper-proof, those are obvious areas you want things to be tamper-proof. I think, like, you don't want policy to be affected by tampering with.
Maybe you do. I don't know.
I would hope not, but.
I don't know. This feels like we're going back to square one a little bit. I think like everybody agrees that module loading and policy code makes sense to make tamper-proof, and we're okay to give up some maintainability in order to get there. I think we have consensus on that topic, mostly at least. But I don't think making other things tamper-proof. We have. Okay. No, I think the basic idea, we don't have any consensus there.
Yeah, so maybe we do need a vote because we don't have a consensus.
So I think what I would like to do is call for a vote on the module loading and policy stuff using these 4 options, and give it a week. Well, maybe 2 weeks because holidays or whatever, but don't give it a whole lot of time, because conversation has been going on a long time, and hopefully people have a decent idea of where they stand. And if they don't, maybe they should abstain, just putting my opinion out there. And see if we can come to a decision on those 2. And then if we come to a decision on those 2, it will hopefully make subsequent decisions about things like REPL easier. It might not. That'll be what I propose.
Yeah. So just to be clear, when we vote on that, we still leave the rest of it undecided.
Yeah, I want us to make a small decision. I want us to actually say we made a decision. If scoping it to just those 2 modules makes that possible, let's do that. Let's make that small decision, and then we can talk about slightly larger decisions from there. Like I don't mind talking about this for like the next 3 or 4 months if we're making decisions along the way. I just don't want to talk about it for another 3 or 4 months and still not make a decision.
I think you need to tweak the. Like, I think D and E no longer make sense in that context. And you need another option, which is like module loading and policing is not tamper-proof. No,
D and E do make sense in those contexts. I mean, D is leave the code as it is.
It's not scoping the question to module loading. You're basically saying we're not going to, if people vote for D, it's saying we're not going to remove any code from those other places.
No, all you have to do is I'm proposing just add the word just at the outset regarding module loading and policy. Do you want to
tamper-proof it?
Yeah, tamper-proof it.
Right. Yeah, that one's obvious.
Through Primordials, right? I mean, B, move it to C++ to make it tamper-proof. D, don't do anything to it. Just leave it as it is now. And E, try to tamper-proof it with.
I think you need script syntax. You at least need an F, which is then don't make it don't make it tamper-proof.
And that's basically D, because it's tamper-proof.
D is saying don't remove anything, right? Like if you say it's not we don't want to tamper-proof module loading. It's like remove it all.
Fine.
Right?
We'll add a 5th option.
Yeah,
I can't. I mean, I just don't think it's a viable option to say we're not gonna. But sure, we can add a 5th option.
Well, then why have a vote if it's if we're not gonna say we can't make it tamper-proof? then where's the vote, right? Like you're basically saying, choose from these four things where the option no is not an answer.
How will we make these tamper-proof? Yes, that is what I'm saying. But okay,
that's what you're saying, right? Yeah.
Let's add a fifth option.
Yeah.
And we can. Yeah.
Wait, what are the options? The options is make it tamper-proof in JavaScript. Make it
using Primordials.
C++.
Yes.
Or don't make it tamper-proof.
Right.
And what are the other ones?
Those sound good to me.
Wait, those are three. Number fourth one is use bind this syntax to make it tamper-proof, which is the one that you said you can't imagine anybody doing. So I can. And then 5 would be don't bother making it tamper-proof. Or did you say that already?
And well, that's one is number 3.
Oh, okay, then leave it. Then leave everything where it is now. I don't know if there are already primordials anywhere in the module loader, but I think there probably are, right? So
all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay. So 5 is don't change a thing.
Okay. Which is the one you thought is not a decision.
Yeah, I don't like that one, but I'm happy to leave it in there.
And is C++ even? I think in theory sounds good, but practically is that even an option? Because we could have lots of people voting for it. I would vote for it, but is it even an option really?
I mean, I think I know he signed off already, but I mean, I suspect that I mean, I don't know what his free time looks like, but the idea that like Bradley might implement policy, and it seems to be not impossible to imagine. Let's see what this is.
Yeah, I've copied the URL in the chat to the Bradley's comment.
I dropped because I'm not supposed to be in TSC meetings and I had the wrong account on my Zoom. I got confused. Someone though, so all the module loader and policy stuff used to be written in C++. I would much prefer to put it back to C++. There were less problems back in C++. There are many more bugs in JavaScript.
Okay.
So there you go, Robert. Someone willing to
that's
do
good context.
Right there.
But now there is a complication because the common JS module loader is now reusing parts of the ESM module loader, and that would require some refactoring. That's fine though. We have a fairly somewhat recent, within a year, C++ implementation.
All right, sounds great. Leave the option.
Yep.
So can you is your suggestion, Bradley, about putting the tamper-proof code in a loader and only guard a minimal IPC mechanism? Is that a separate option from
correct. So the loaders working group is finally ready. I think we've reached feature parity where we can move loaders off thread, and we want to move all ES module loaders off thread, which would mean you're already in kind of like a protected area that has to be invoked via the CLI. We probably don't need to tamper-proof it at that point because random user code off NPM most likely can't tamper with it. So you're probably fine. And you only need to guard the message port between the loaders and the application context. Yep. So it's separate. It's like you can leave the code, however, you could port it back to JavaScript. It doesn't matter, port it to C++. You can do that on top of everything, but we plan on doing it at least for the ES module loader to move it off thread, in which case this concern goes mostly away for that. For CommonJS, it's not practical to defend it.
Right. So for ESM modules, though, so it sounds like whatever the TSC decides, ESM, the modules group has a plan to address this, to make to make.
It was not our intent to address this concern. We have other concerns, but yes, it will. This concern will go away if we move it off thread.
Okay.
Or you would reduce the scope because you said there's still the still an attack vector with the message. Not sure what you said exactly. Said there's just message to protect.
Yes. So the message port that would be the communications channel of the privileged and unprivileged areas of the code base. By privileged, I mean the tamper-proof area or whatever we want to call it, and the application context, the thing getting random modules off NPM. Generally, loaders, policy files, we can't consider untrusted because at that point, they've already got a hold of things too powerful to really, for us to be concerned. So as long as this barrier exists where the only way for the application NPM modules to communicate with the privileged loader is through this IPC bridge, probably going to be a message port. That means the only thing you have to defend is a message port against tampering. Everything else you would send a literal object or string through it, and it would be handled on the other side. So there's nothing to tamper with. They wouldn't share prototypes. They wouldn't do anything. Anyway, that's separate. That can be done completely separate, but it is going to happen to ES module loaders. CommonJS is still kind of hosed.
So here's what I'm thinking out loud about this, which is that, like, okay, if we're just talking about ESM modules, and if we're not concerned about CommonJS, and ES modules are gonna just be taken care of by themselves, whatever we decide to do, then that just leaves policy, which is also policy is basically maintained by you, right? I mean, nobody else is really working on that.
Policy integrates against the module loaders. Yes, I think there's one other person who's done commits on it. Besides me, it would also be unaffected in ES modules. Like I said, this is only going to protect ES modules. This is not going to protect CommonJS modules. I don't think CommonJS is practically defensible.
So sticking for a moment though with what's happening in ES modules isn't going to make policy tamper proof.
It would, because it makes policy tamper proof, but only for loading through the ES module loader.
So basically what you're saying is that since the TSC has dithered for so long, the problem has resolved itself. No, I'm sorry.
No, there's a bad memory usage problem. There's around 11 megabytes added when we move it off thread right now. But we want to move it off thread regardless.
Right. So, but it sounds. I think what Rich is saying is, if CommonJS is not defensible, the ESX modules, the plans that are being in place for other reasons, are going to fix the problem. Do we need to do anything? Do we need to? Can we just say remove all primordials? It doesn't. It's not an issue anymore.
I mean, at that point, does it make sense then to turn our attention away from ES modules and policy and look at the other things we were talking about, kicking down the road a bit, like HTTP?
Yeah, right.
Sure.
And I'm going to say we've only got 4 minutes left, so I think we can spend 1 more minute.
The only thing you would probably want to decide before going over there is if you want to declare CommonJS kind of indefensible.
Yeah, I guess we can do that, can't we?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to second guess. I'm not going to second guess Bradley on that. So let somebody.
Well, we would break too much of the ecosystem if we made it defensible.
Yeah.
We could, but we would break so much it wouldn't matter.
Well, I mean, the point kind of right now is that it isn't defended, right? The way it's used in the ecosystem.
Correct. They want it to be indefensible. Well, yeah. My company wants it to be indefensible. So
I think we've only got the 3 minutes. So to keep us anywhere near on track, we should probably take that back to the issue.
Although, Bradley, do you want to add a comment, or would you prefer I do to the issue, just explaining what you just basically explained to us, that like this is not going to be that at some point in the foreseeable future, modules and policy will be nearly or completely tamper-proof because of this reason?
Maybe you could do it. I think having two different ways, and I'll try to see if it matches what I think.
And then you can correct or clarify anything I get wrong. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go. I'm not supposed to be here anyway.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Bye.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly see if there's anything else we absolutely need to cover. So invite TC members in the Google Calendar events for meetings. I don't think I'd seen any discussion or updates on that unless somebody has an update. Okay, if not, the next one is update TC meeting times. The issue's closed. I've updated all the meetings going forward to the new times. Thanks, Rich, for your work to help find those, and we'll see how it goes. I do need somebody to take I think it's next week, but I guess I'll.
Rich said he'd do it, and I said I'd take no.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I don't know if he's available next week in particular, but he said in general he can do that.
In general, he can do that. Okay.
Yeah, and good. I said I could take notes during that time. So yeah.
Okay. So maybe I'll just comment on the issue when it's created next week. Say, hey, Jarish volunteered.
And it's so close to
sure.
You know, everybody's vacation time that'll probably be canceled anyway. But yeah.
Yep, sounds good. Add security triaging to core repo.
That's me. It's almost done. Yep. Don't worry about it. Though. Kick it to the next meeting. It's fine.
Okay. Okay, the move BNB dev env, that's basically been moved. I think we can close the issue. So I just commented on that. So I think there's nothing to discuss there. And that takes us to the end of the issues that we had. I know we're at time, but Rich did ask that we stick around just for a very short private section. So
I'll put it in private email. Okay. I got a hard stop anyway, so I'll send it an email.
Okay, perfect. Then we will close out with 30 seconds to spare. Thank you, everybody who attended, and thanks for everybody who's been watching on the live stream. Talk to everybody next time.
Bye.
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 Thanks.